Hello, everyone. Welcome to Baha'i Chat with Rainn Wilson. I'm your MC, Liz Dwyer, and I'm a writer and editor who lives in Los Angeles. And I'm so thrilled to be with you today for this informal monthly conversation series with Rainn that's dedicated to our interconnectedness. We know that no matter where you live or what's going on in your life, you can probably, if you're like us, use something to help you turn your thoughts to spiritual ideas and consider how you apply those ideas to bring yourself, your family, your communities, your loved ones closer to more love, unity, and justice. Today's topic with Rainn is we're going to be talking about life after death, which is something that is clearly, given everything going on in our world, on the minds of plenty of people. And each of these conversations with Rainn is rooted in the writings of the Baha'i Faith and its fundamental concepts. So there's three of them: the oneness of God, the harmony of all religions, and the unity of humanity. So the program is just 1 hour, including Q&A, but let's get into it. It's my great pleasure to introduce my good friend, Rainn Wilson. So Rainn is an American actor, a comedian, writer, director, businessman, and producer. He's best known for his role as Dwight Schrute on the NBC sitcom The Office, for which he earned 3 consecutive Emmy Award nominations for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. So Rainn, happy last Saturday or Sunday. Today's Sunday. Oh my goodness, the weekend went so fast. Sunday of Women's History Month. How's Women's History Month been for you?
Historical. It's amazing. The 1-2 punch of Black History Month and Women's History Month. Boom.
I know, talk about intersectionality, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's been great. It's been a great Women's History Month. I can't say that in all honesty, I used Black History Month as an opportunity to kind of dig into some stories I had never heard before about some people I'd never heard before, and I kind of neglected Women's History Month. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry to you and to my wife, to all of the great 51% women of the world.
Well, this is a good thing, though, is that we know that those things should just be the jumping off point to what we do for the rest of the year, every day in our lives. So you got this.
Okay, good. What's next month?
Next month? Let's see, May? Flowers?
April.
No, wait. Oh, we're still in March. See, I don't know if it's Saturday or Sunday, if it's March, April, I don't know. Time at this point in the pandemic just becomes all relative. Like, what month are we in? I don't know.
The Zoom time frame, yes. Yeah, okay, someone figure out what April is. But Liz, thank you so much for that introduction. Next month, when we do this, folks, and we'll talk more about this at the end, but Liz Dwyer and I are going to do a discussion on race and racism and a spiritual perspective on healing racism from a Baha'i inspiration. So we'd love for you to join us with that. We'll give you all the details later on. All right, there's the title, Life and Death and Everything in Between. The founder of the Baha'i Faith, his name is Baha'u'llah, and this is a quote from a book that he wrote called The Hidden Words. And he says in this, and this is a book written almost from the perspective of God speaking to man. That's the kind of conceit of this book. O Son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? I made the light to shed on thee its splendor. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom? And I love this quote. When I was a kid, when I was a young Baha'i living in Wilmette, Illinois, I was a security guard at the Baha'i Temple in Wilmette, Illinois, on Lakeshore Drive, Sheridan Road. And this quote was written on the side. I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? And I've been thinking about this a lot because I recently lost my father. This was about 8 months ago now. Robert Wilson, that's his picture. He was a brilliant artist. He was a great spiritual thinker and speaker and leader. And I kept thinking about this as I was grieving for months and months, and still am grieving to this day, about the mystery of this quote. I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? So it's one thing to kind of say, hey, death's not that bad. We're all going to heaven in the end. don't worry about it. Don't grieve too much, or it'll be, oh, they're there. But it's like, this is like, don't grieve. Death is joy. Well, I'm certainly not experiencing it as joy. And I think that it would be an incredible challenge to any person to experience it as joy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Baha'i faith in general terms. I'm going to speak a little bit about the nature of the soul in the Baha'i faith, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal experience. And in researching the Baha'i view on the soul and life after death, I came across a number of wonderful quotes that I wanted to share with you. This is a quote that is put on a Baha'i burial ring. There are very few rituals in the Baha'i faith. There's very few ceremonies or rituals. The only real ones of note have to do with burial, and that is the body is placed in and wrapped in a white, is washed, prepared for burial, and wrapped in a white shroud, not embalmed, and a ring is placed on the finger. And this is the ring that's placed on the finger. I came forth from God and return unto him, detached from all save him, holding fast to his name, the merciful, the compassionate. What a beautiful thought that is. This question kept popping up to me because in the Baha'i faith, just so we know, there's no concept of hell as a place. There's not like saved people go to heaven and damned people go to hell. We are simply spending a brief period of time in our bodies, in our meat suits. And when our time is up at 80, 90, 100 years, then our essence of who we really are, our souls, continue their journey towards meeting our Creator. Everyone goes on that journey. Now, there's a little more to it than that, but in a nutshell, that's what Baha'is believe. There's not any reincarnation. Our soul's not coming back into a squirrel or into a plastic surgeon, depending on if you've been a bad person or a good person. And there isn't that form of damnation. Now, one could metaphorically look at hell in the Baha'i faith as having a distance from God. I've certainly at times in my life had a distance from God, and it certainly felt like hell. That I imagine couldn't exist in the next plane of existence as in this one. But I thought of this isn't a quote. This is just a thought that was in my head. How does one live one's life on earth if death is the end, the finish line, lights out? Because to a lot of people, atheists and others and agnostics, this is it. This is what you got. You got your 80, 90, 100 years in your meat suit. And then when you die, your consciousness snuffs out like a little candle going out. And that's all she wrote. There's nothing else beyond that. There is only a material universe. There are only molecules and atoms here in this physical plane for some reason. There's no reason for it. And we just happen to evolve consciousnesses. And we happened to invent Zoom, and we happened to invent the internet, and here we are having this discussion on the internet. But how do you live your life if you die and that's it? To some people, this could be exhilarating. Hey, I've only got one life. I'm not living for the next world. I'm only living for this world, and make the most of it and enjoy and savor every day. I think for some people, I don't know about all, but I think for some people that that might provide depth and inspiration to them. I'd love to hear from you guys if you have had that experience. So Abdul Baha is the son of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i Faith, and he was a great spiritual teacher and a very wise man, and the Baha'is read and revere and study his writings as well as Baha'u'llah's. But he has this to say on that topic of, if death is the end of existence, and he calls it annihilation. The concept of annihilation, says Abdul Baha, is a factor in human degradation. So he's not a big fan, apparently. a cause of human debasement and lowliness, a source of human fear and abjection. Whereas the realization of existence and continuity has upraised man to a sublimity of ideals, established the foundations of human progress, and stimulated the development of heavenly virtues. So here are these two things held in kind of a dichotomous opposition. One is annihilation, and one is a continuity of existence. So the final paragraph here says, it behooves man to abandon thoughts of non-existence and death, which are absolutely imaginary, and see himself ever living, everlasting in the divine purpose of his creation. This brought me such solace when I was grieving my father. And it brings me great solace in my life today as what I believe I am, a spiritual being inhabiting a physical costume for a limited amount of time, having a lot of experiences, some positive, some negative, some struggles, some ups and downs. And, but the idea that my existence is ever living, everlasting in the divine purpose of my creation, this allows me to not only lessen the grief of my father's passing with an understanding that he is on this same journey, he is ever living, everlasting in his divine purpose, but that I will be headed on that same journey any day now. Next couple years, next couple decades, what does it really matter? It's all right around the corner. So, how do you live your life on earth if you know this is not a Baha'i quote, this is just a thought that I put up there and Josephina put in a beautiful yellow background. How do you live your life on earth if you know there is a continuation of life throughout eternal, infinite realms of the divine mystery? So, how does this change what you do and how you do it? Let's find out. Here's a nice perspective on death. Again, these were all quotes that I uncovered, unearthed. Some are very well known in the Baha'i Faith, some are not very well known, but I loved this central analogy. Again, coming back to, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee, wherefore dost thou grieve? To consider that after the death of the body, the spirit perisheth, is imagining that a bird in a cage will be destroyed if the cage is broken, though the bird has nothing to fear from the destruction of the cage. Our body is like the cage. That's a common song. I know that's a song by Arcade Fire, probably a lot of other bands. Our body is a cage, and the spirit is like the bird. If the cage becomes broken, the bird will continue to exist. Its feelings will be even more powerful, perceptions greater, and happiness increased. So here are some promises made by Abdul Baha in this quote, that the bird of our spirit will have even more powerful feelings, even greater perceptions, and greater happiness. All of this awaits us. So what a beautiful metaphor this is. I teach a children's class on Saturday mornings, a Baha'i-inspired kids class. They're like 9 to 11 years old. And we've been talking a lot about metaphor recently. I'm getting a really beautiful side light as the sun is setting here in Los Angeles out that window. And we talk about metaphors a lot in this children's class. And not only the Baha'i writings, but all of the world's holy religions, which Baha'is cherish and revere. Islam, the Quran, the Bible, and Jesus, the Dhammapada and the Buddha, the Bhagavad Gita, and Lord Krishna, so many other amazing divine teachers, all coming from the same source, from the same God, use metaphor and simile and stories to teach, because it's I just find it really exciting. As someone who loves poetry and poetic language, I can really relate to my body being a cage and my spirit being the bird that will be set free when the cage is broken. And that's what I saw when my father passed away. He died of heart disease, extreme heart disease that had been building for decades. They attempted to do a quadruple bypass, and it didn't take. So he was in the small percentage of people that don't make it through that surgery. It was about 79 years old. But that was my number one realization standing there over his body in the hospital, that I was looking not at my father, but I was looking at this cage. I was looking at this vessel that had carried his spirit through the world for 79 years. And it was faulty. You know, he had a pins in his ankle, and his knees had arthritis, and his shoulder would go out of whack, and he was a little overweight, and he had some precancerous lesions removed from his skin. So it was a faulty vessel. All of ours are, especially over time. And but there it was on the hospital table, and and maybe some of you have had a similar experience where it was like, oh, that's not my father. That is simply a husk that carried him around. So a beautiful shift in perspective. So the founder of the Baha'i Faith, Baha'u'llah, says, "And now concerning thy question regarding the soul of man and its survival after death, know of a truth that the soul, after its separation from the body, will continue to progress until it attaineth the presence of God, in a state and condition which neither the revolution of ages and centuries nor the changes and chances of this world can alter. It will endure as long as the kingdom of God." So when the Bible says eternal soul, and the Quran says our eternal soul, and the Baha'i Faith says our eternal soul, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a soul will continue to progress until it meets God, and it will endure as long as the kingdom of God. That's a long time. It will endure as long as the kingdom of God, his sovereignty, his dominion, and power will endure, which is, i.e., spoiler alert, forever. It will manifest the signs of God and his attributes, and will reveal his loving kindness and bounty. And this is a key part of the Baha'i belief about life after death, which is that we work in this world to manifest the signs of God and his attributes. What does that mean? Well, how do we know God? Maybe there's some atheists out there, but let's just assume God's not an old white man with a beard on a cloud who's scowling and judgmental. Let's assume God is an all-encompassing, unknowable force beyond time, space. And how do we know this God? Well, we know God through his holy and divine teachers like Jesus, like Muhammad, like the Buddha, like Baha'u'llah. And we know God through the qualities of God. You know, I know God. I can get a little taste, a little soupçon of the divine looking out my window at these beautiful olive trees. In fact, I'll show you. Why not? Why don't I just show you? Look at that. We have beautiful old 50-year-old olive trees out there, and the dappled sunlight. And now it's the spring. Birds are going ape shit out there in Los Angeles right now, building their nests. They're just going, it's chock-a-block with birds. They're going nuts. We've got hummingbirds up the wazoo out here. It's amazing. They're really incredibly beautiful. So we know God through God's attributes like beauty, and attributes that we generate and manifest in ourselves. Attributes like kindness and humility and patience and perseverance and honesty. As I was looking through these quotes on life after death and the progress of the soul, Again, trying to come to terms with my father's passing and trying to find some solace and wisdom from the experience, I came across this quote about souls. The light which these souls radiate is responsible for the progress of the world and the advancement of its peoples. They are like unto leaven, which leaveneth the world of being and constitute the animating force through which the arts and wonders of the world are made manifest. Through them the clouds rain their bounty upon men, and the earth bringeth forth its fruits. These souls provide the supreme moving impulse in the world of being. There's a lot here, folks. There's a lot to unpack. I see we got some questions percolating. Please do share your questions. We'll have plenty of times for a Q&A and a discussion. So the light that the souls radiate is responsible for the progress of the world and the advancement of its peoples. That's amazing. So this is saying that it's not God, or maybe it is saying it is God, but God, through the light of the souls, these souls meaning inspired souls, these souls, that light is responsible for the progress of the world. I like to think of my father in this context. They are like unto leaven, which leaveneth the world of being, and constitute the animating force through which the arts and wonders of the world are made manifest. Through them the clouds rain their bounty upon men, and the earth bringeth forth its fruits. These souls provide the supreme moving impulse in the world of being. So I read it twice. But the supreme moving impulse in the world of being, which is where we are, the supreme moving impulse is the light from the souls of those who have passed. That's amazing. That's absolutely incredible. I even think most Baha'is don't really get that. So when we talk about, artists talk about the muse, and you always talk to artists and they'll say like, this didn't come from me. Like I channeled it. It just came through me. I was an empty vessel. I was a hollow reed, and this inspiration moved through me. Well, this is in the Baha'i lexicon, inspiration coming from these divine, illuminated, special souls. I think about this in my father. My father was a wonderful painter, and a writer, and I bet on the other side he would love to be sparking this inspiration. So I highlighted at the top the word leaven. They leaveneth the world. So it's a great way to think about the inspiration that comes from those departed, because leaven is just a little bit, it's just a little sprinkle. If you make bread, everyone knows if you just put water and flour and sugar or whatever, it's and wheat or whatever goes, that is flour. I don't know. I don't cook. I microwave. If that, it's just going to be a block, right? It's just going to be a brick. It's going to be hard. It's going to be inedible, essentially. But leaven is an odd thing. It's an impurity. It's a bacteria. It's yeast that, interacts with the sugars and in the flour and starts this fermentation process, which when you cook the bread allows it to raise and be edible and be smell great and be delicious. And that leaven, metaphorically speaking, remember we were talking about metaphors earlier with the children's class and the metaphor of the cage and the bird. Here's a metaphor of leaven and the loaf of bread. Here's another central metaphor to the Baha'i teachings about the soul and life after death. In this world, he, man, must prepare himself for the life beyond. That which he needs in the world of the kingdom must be obtained here, just as he prepared himself for the world of the matrix by acquiring forces necessary in this sphere of existence. so likewise the indispensable forces of the divine existence must be potentially attained in this world. So part of our job here, folks, is to prepare ourselves for the life beyond. He says that which he needs in the world of the kingdom must be obtained here. Just as he had prepared himself in the world of the matrix, the womb, by acquiring the forces necessary in this sphere of existence, i.e., a baby in the womb needs to grow fingers and fingernails and eyebrows and eyelashes and ears. And, if you were to say to a baby in the womb, why are you growing ears? What are those nubs on the side of your head? The baby would be like, I don't know. Occasionally I get some vague sense of some kind of thumping rhythm outside, but I have no idea why I need them. But when we get into this physical realm, you can hear the hummingbirds outside with the ears. And they are integral and super important to our experience of being alive in this world. And the same thing holds true from this Baha'i metaphor, from the spiritual qualities, the virtues that we are growing in this world that we will take with us. Kindness, humility, generosity, compassion, etc. This is what we're not going to take with us, our Tesla. We're not going to take our Bitcoin. We're not going to take our sheds and our land and our olive trees. We take those qualities that we have developed over our time in these meat suits. Here's a beautiful quote. That divine world is manifestly a world of lights. Therefore, man has need of illumination here. So that's a world of lights, says Abdul Baha, son of Baha'u'llah. That is a world of love. The love of God is essential. It is a world of perfections. Virtues or perfections must be acquired. Again, those virtues that we talked about, love, kindness, compassion, humility, etc. That world is vivified by the breaths of the Holy Spirit. In this world, we must seek them. That is the kingdom of life everlasting. It must be attained during this vanishing existence. So here we are in this vanishing existence. I love that phrase because it's vanishing, as Jaques says, and As You Like It by Shakespeare, well, we were born to die. It's vanishing. 100 years, what's that? What's that against the panoply of time, the tapestry of time itself? It's but a sneeze. So we are gathering what we need for the kingdom of life everlasting in this vanishing existence. Perfections, virtues, light, illumination. I'm going to end this talk soon, folks, and then we'll have time to have some chit chat, and I'd love to get Liz's perspective. God exalted be he. This is a little seen quote for if there's any Baha'is watching. A little seen known quote. God exalted be he fashioned 100,000 lamps and suspended the throne, the earth, the heavens, and whatsoever is between them, even heaven and hell, all of these in a single lamp. And only God knows what is in the rest of the lamps. Do you remember in C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, there was one of the, I don't know if it was Voyage of the Dawn Treader, where they're in this forest and there's all these pools laid out, infinite pools, and every pool you can jump into and it takes you into a world. When I was a kid, I loved that book so much. And that idea was just staggering. Oh my God, the amount of adventure that you could have jumping into pool after pool. And this is a very similar metaphor, again, with the metaphor. 100,000 lamps. So I guess that's 100,000 times 1,000. Millions of lamps put the throne, the earth, the heavens, and whatever's between them, even in heaven and hell, in one of the lamps. There's a million more lamps. That kind of puts eternity and God's limitless creation into perspective. There's a lot of quotes. I apologize. This is how I like to talk about these things because I love the Baha'i Faith so much, and I love the writings of its central teachers so much. I think they're much more interesting to study and listen to than me gabbing on and on. The first thing to do is to acquire a thirst for spirituality. Then live the life, live the life, live the life. It's a quote from Abdul Baha, whose example Baha'is attempt to follow. He was just a philanthropist and humanitarian and loving and kind and taught spiritual values and virtues wherever he went. So he says, do two things: acquire a thirst for spirituality and live the life. What does that mean, to live the life? That means to live a spiritual life, a rich spiritual life filled with generosity and kindness and compassion. The way to acquire this thirst is to meditate upon the future life. That's what we've been doing today. The way to acquire a thirst for spirituality is to meditate on the future life, to meditate on this path from womb to this ever-vanishing, fleeting world of meat suits, to the world of the illumination of the souls on the other side, and then the 1,000 times 100,000 lamps. Study the holy words, read your Bible, read the holy books, especially study the holy utterances of Baha'u'llah. Prayer and meditation take much time for these two. Then you will know this great thirst, and then only can you begin to live the life. So it all begins with a hunger or a thirst, that itch to learn more about spirituality. And where do you get that from? From meditating on the arc of our eternal life, of our journey. Here we have a beautiful prayer for the departed. This is one that I was saying for my dad quite often, and I'll share it with you right now. He is God, O peerless Lord. Praised be thou for having kindled that light in the glass of the concourse on high, for having guided that bird of faithfulness to the nest of the Abha kingdom. Thou hast joined that precious river to the mighty sea. Thou hast returned that spreading ray of light to the sun of truth. Thou hast welcomed that captive of remoteness into the garden of reunion, and led him who longed to look upon thee to thy presence in thy bright place of lights. Thou art the Lord of tender love. Thou art the last goal of the yearning heart. Thou art the dearest wish of the martyr's soul. Beautiful prayer. Look at all the metaphors contained. A light in the glass, a bird to a nest, a river joining with a sea, a spreading ray of light joined with the sun, a remote captive welcomed into a garden of reunion, and welcoming someone into that bright place of lights. Again, there's that light analogy. It's just beautiful. Come back to the last quote, please. O Son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee. Wherefore dost thou grieve? Now, maybe I don't feel joyful right now, but I know that even myself, in beginning this talk from where I started to where I am now, 34 minutes later, I have a little bit of a shift of perspective of why Baha'u'llah might have said that death was a messenger of joy. When I look at the totality of those incredible teachings and that beautiful poetry and those incredible metaphors, the bird in the cage, the 1,000 upon 10,000 lights, the leaven, the leaven, the inspiration that the light of those holy souls provides us here on earth. The journey of us from womb through this material world, gaining spiritual qualities and continuing on our eternal journey to meet our Creator. When I think about the thirst for spirituality that can be generated in pondering our deaths, when I look at all of these different facets of this incredibly beautiful, rich, and vibrant gem of wisdom talking about life after death, when I look at these different facets, I start to see a lot more joy than I do despair. And let's just go forward, if you wouldn't mind, Josephina. How does one live one's life on earth as death is the end, the finish line? And then go to the next slide, please. Annihilation versus continuity and being ever living and everlasting. So how do you see one's life when you look at it from the context of a continuity of existence, which is inspiring to me, uplifting, and perspective altering. And at times when I'm in touch with it, it can actually alter the course of my day. Thank you all so much for joining us today and listening to my little spiel. I just love those quotes. I hope you enjoyed them. And it's my honor, my privilege to share them with you. Maybe we have some questions, and I'd love to get Liz's perspective and maybe have a little informal conversation. The idea of this was to have an informal chat. So I hope we can do that.
If you all do have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen on Zoom. I can also look over on Facebook too and see if there are any, but I definitely appreciated your thoughts on that. It's always, although I'm never going to hear the word meat suit the same again, I have to say, so.
It was after one of my favorite bands of the 90s, the Meat Puppets.
Oh, I remember the Meat Puppets. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's see. Some of the questions. This is a really interesting one. What happens to the soul of a completely evil person?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I always think about, we'll just use Hitler. Everyone uses Hitler.
Right.
There have been a lot of evil people. We'll just jump right to Hitler. Yeah, what is
going down? Right.
What's that?
What's going down with Hitler's soul?
What's going down with Hitler's soul, man? I think there's redemption for all of us. I really do. There's very, very little talk in the Baha'i lexicon and the Baha'i mythology. There's very little talk about damnation, very little talk about separation, vengeance, punishment. There's some references there. I'm sure he didn't have a great time on the other side. I'm sure he wasn't partying down with the angels and spreading his light and his leaven all over the place. But yeah, I don't know, Liz, what's your perspective on that?
It's interesting. There is, I think, a quotation somewhere that Baha'u'llah talks about, like, what should happen to a murderer. And you have to atone in this life for your deeds, right? And then God is not going to give you, I guess, like, is it double jeopardy, or basically like a second divine retribution after you die and that. But if that doesn't happen, it's not like you just are automatically just sent into the fires of hell in that sense, because as we know, as Rainn, explained, we don't have that sort of concept. But your soul might suffer because you haven't spent that time here on earth growing the spiritual attributes that you need in order to thrive and survive and do what you need to do in the next world. So it's sort of like that. I always thought it was an interesting thing too, though, Rainn, when you're talking about the analogy of the baby, because for all of the people who've ever been pregnant, and I can remember when my youngest son was constantly like kicking me, and I would press back on his foot, and I'd be like, "Stop it!" Like, it's like your foot is on my rib. Like, I know you're in there, And I would talk to him, and I would always wonder, does he know like what's happening with that? But what was interesting is that for me as a mother, there's so much, genetically and things like that, and environmentally that can affect a pregnancy. Racism can affect how, you know, a stress, all these things. But I felt like such a huge responsibility to be like, I have to eat healthy, I have to rest, I have to do all these things so that my baby has the best chance to grow all the things that he needs in order to survive in this world. The interesting thing is that, your parents are responsible for you up to a certain point, but you're responsible for growing all the things that you need
Hmm.
in the next
Mm-hmm.
world.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So you have to, like you said, grow your own ear and your own whatnot. So if you're out here, as we say, doing dirt, you know, you're essentially not growing the things that you need, and you're making it harder for you. But it's not, it's not like that's it. Here's the cutoff point. So
And this could be a whole longer metaphysical discussion, um, which has to do with morality.
yes,
And if the purpose of morality is not to keep you from going to hell or deciding if you're an evil person or a good person or a devil versus an angel, this kind of like dichotomy that has existed, which really is not in the teachings of Jesus or Muhammad, but um, then morality is there for this protection, to protect us so that we can grow those spiritual qualities. So, Baha'is don't do drugs. Well, drugs can get in the way of you developing kindness, humility, compassion, etc. There's not an inherent evilness in drugs. It's just addiction can be a dangerous path that keeps you from that. And there's just countless examples of that. So it also, what this discussion also does is kind of shifts a discussion about morality less from kind of good evil dichotomy to um, just doing what's best for our purpose, which is developing the qualities of the soul in this physical plane.
absolutely. So here's another one. This question is, in the Baha'i teachings, how are the concepts of good, evil, and repentance understood? And is there a need for a savior?
Yeah, great question. So Baha'is, so let's go to evil first. That one's an easier one to understand. So when Abdul Baha came to America in 1912, and he was here for 239 days and toured all around northern North America, um, a reporter, as he landed, says, "Did the Baha'is believe in Satan?" And Abdul Baha said, "Yes." And the reporter said, "Oh, how do Baha'is see Satan?" And Abdul Baha said, "Satan is the insistent self." So, what do we know? The insistent self is our ego, right? We learned that in Psychology 101. So, Satan is in us. We all carry Satan in us. And it's that need for self. Like I want to have status over you. I want to be right and for you to be wrong. I want me to be lauded and other people to not be lauded as much. Whatever that means to you, it manifests in different ways for different people, as we know. So that's rather than there being like a dark prince of evil, kind of sending temptations and evils around. We all have that in us in a different sense. So good is, doing things of God, and um, uh, and then repentance is a very important part of the Baha'i faith. Um, there are countless prayers for forgiveness. We're supposed to ask for forgiveness. We're supposed to ask for forgiveness from people we've harmed, but also especially to God, and that God is, and it is said in the Baha'i faith, as in the Quran, it is said that God's mercy exceedeth his justice. So thank God, literally, that his mercy exceeds his justice. Now, Savior is interesting, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about this too, Liz. So, in terms of a Christian context, right? The Christian mythology that developed hundreds of years after Jesus was that um, Jesus was the Son of God and that he is the Savior. So if you believe in Jesus, your soul is saved and you're going to heaven. those who don't accept him as a personal savior are going to hell. Now, this isn't all the sects of Christianity, but this is a common belief in many sects of Christianity. There's thousands of sects of Christianity. So to the Baha'is, it doesn't work that way. Jesus is one of many profound and sacred divine teachers that come every 500 or 1,000 years or so to update, refresh the word of God, the teachings of God. And so Baha'u'llah, Baha'is believe, as much as we love Jesus and read the words of Jesus and revere the Bible and Jesus, we don't necessarily follow the dogma that developed in the hundreds of years after Jesus. And we believe that there is a new divine teacher, sacred divine teacher, and his name is Baha'u'llah, which means the glory of God. And so is Baha'u'llah my savior? Yes, in some ways. Is he everyone's savior? Not really. Are people who don't believe in Baha'u'llah going to hell? Absolutely not. Are all of these divine teachers our salvation? Yes, because they're delivering the word of God to humanity, and we greatly, greatly need that. We can see that from the amount of pain the world is in right now. So, Liz, any thoughts on that?
No, I think you touched on some questions that also are popping up about how does our faith view Jesus, and talking about the how the Baha'i faith recognizes multiple spiritual teachers. So it's interesting, you reminded me of how Baha'u'llah refers to Christ as the Lord of the visible and invisible. And Abdu'l-Baha said that to be a Christian is to embody every excellence there is. So I think sometimes people have the idea that if you become a Baha'i, that means that you're rejecting everybody else that came before, like all the other manifestations of God, like that's a wrap for them, that this means that you don't believe in those people. But actually, Baha'is believe in, there's a concept called progressive revelation, which basically means that God sends messengers at different times in history to share the teachings that are needed for that particular society. And so those messengers of God, which would be, Buddha, Krishna, Moses, Muhammad, Jesus, the Bab, who was the forerunner of Baha'u'llah, and then Baha'u'llah himself, all come from the same divine source. And they're divinely inspired to share what the society they live in needs. So there's not a competition between them, or that one is good or one is bad in that sense. But Baha'is believe that Baha'u'llah is the messenger for this day and age. So, that was what made me think about that. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I thought about too, which is in that question just about good and evil and repentance, I loved how you were talking about the prayers for forgiveness. And actually, there's so many prayers for the departed. I actually regularly pray for family members and friends who have passed on and who have died, because praying for the progress of their soul. In the last chat that we had, I talked a little bit about how, my brother died by suicide, and in previous cultures, there was very much the belief that that person is damned, for all eternity. There's no way for their soul to ever make progress in any way, shape, or form. That's just it. They couldn't be buried in the churchyard, like all of that sort of thing. And your family then is completely shamed as well. And so there was a really, it's a horrible situation for so many people, if you've experienced this in your family and lost a loved one in this way, and know that the way that they were suffering. And it was very comforting place to be, to recognize that my brother's soul, he had left his what is it? The meat sack?
Meat suit.
Meat
sack works.
He had left his meat suit behind,
How about flesh tuxedo?
Flesh tuxedo. But his soul can still make progress. He's then living a spiritual existence. Yeah. And he still has the opportunity. So I regularly pray for his soul.
Mm. And that's some quotes that I didn't have the time to get into, but we realized that we can pray for the progress of the souls of people on the other side. They can pray for us. We can also pray, this is going to sound weird, we can also pray to them, and that doesn't mean like worshiping them, but we can connect with them through our prayers and meditations. And we can even ask for inspiration and guidance from those who have passed on. You know, it works essentially like the way angels are perceived in Islam and in Christianity.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, there's another question here about what are the necessary texts to dive into to begin learning more about the Baha'i Faith?
Yeah, what do you think, Liz? What do you say?
Um,
I never know how to answer that question.
There's so many Baha'u'llah wrote so many different volumes and revealed so many prayers talking about all sorts of spiritual concepts related to justice, the way we should live our lives, like all that sort of stuff. There's a book called The Hidden Words of Baha'u'llah, which I think was written in, I want to say it was 1875, but I might be butchering that. But it's small, short quotations, and actually one that on this topic related to death is probably one of my favorite Baha'i quotes. And in it, it says that bring thyself to account each day, ere death unheralded shall come to thee, and thou shalt be called to give account for thy deeds. And I always liked that one because it was just my reminder of to show up and work hard for justice and unity and loving people and doing right. Some people, I think when they hear it, they might look at through because if you don't do those things, you're going to be like the list checking off. So you did this, you did this, you did this, and you're going to the bad place, you know? It's about to go down. But I think that is a really great, because each line is just short like that, and it makes you think, makes you think about like your life and how you can bring yourself more in line with spiritual concepts.
I think that's a great choice. It's really hard, folks, because there isn't a Baha'i like Bible. There isn't a Baha'i like Bhagavad Gita, a central kind of text. There's just different texts for, some have laws and codes of behavior. Some are more mystical and almost like poetry. And, some are like involve stories from early Baha'is and the central figures in history. And it really depends on the kind of stuff you like and what you're in the mood for. But I do think that bahai.org is a terrific reference website that can guide you through Baha'i concepts. And bahaiteachings.org, that Liz is the editor of, is also a fantastic website with a lot of amazing resources.
All right, so here's a question that is on a slightly different topic. Samantha wants to know, is premarital sex banned in the Baha'i Faith?
Yes, banned. Banned is a strong word. So this has, and I see that there's a question about homosexuality as well. And so if you look at one of the books of Baha'u'llah, the Kitabi Aqdas, it is the central book of teachings, and in that book are a lot of the moral laws. And so Baha'is are taught that sex is for a married man and a married woman, and then but there, I cannot tell you how little is written about sex and sexuality in the Baha'i Faith. It's just so not really touched on, or there's very, very little about it. We talk about being chaste and, not being filled with lust, and that sexuality can run rampant and can be like can be very destructive. So Baha'is are encouraged to have sex after marriage. Baha'is are encouraged to enter into monogamous man-woman relationships. This, however, again, like we were talking about earlier, the concept of sin in the Baha'i faith is so very different than it is in other faiths. To a lot of people, they hear that and they're like, oh, so it's a sin not to. So you're bad if you're not to, and you're judged if you don't do it, and you're looked down upon, and you're ostracized, and you're like none of that stuff happens in the Baha'i faith. These are all of the things. Like, for instance, one of the main moral teachings of the Baha'i faith is one that I struggle with, which is backbiting and gossiping. Talking ill of other people when they're not around is one of the central moral teachings. It's something I struggle with. I think it's something we all struggle with. And because I struggle with it, it doesn't mean that I'm going to Baha'i hell or Bahel. It's just something I struggle. Some people don't struggle with it. Other people may have issues with. I met a guy who became a Baha'i who was a professional gambler. Baha'is don't gamble. And at a certain point, he had to walk away from his life as he chose to walk away from his life as a professional gambler. So it's a nuanced conversation about sex outside of marriage or before marriage. It's not, in some ways, here's the simplicity of the teachings. It's kind of like, in some ways it's black and white, but really it must allow a much more variegated and nuanced conversation about the nature of morality itself. And it goes back to that baby in the womb growing its fingernails and its ears and eyes for this world, and why we have moral laws. Baha'u'llah says, think not that I have unveiled a mere code of laws, in this book of laws. Instead I have uncorked I forget the exact phrase now, the wine, the choicest wine. So these laws are like, there's something to be savored. They're delicious. They're intoxicating. They're not like thou shalt and thou shalt not. So good question.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Let's see. I think it's 6. Are we just an hour?
Yeah, I mean, if there's 1 or 2 more questions, we could do that, and we can just wrap it up. But yeah, we're just an hour.
Okay, cool. This was a question. This is a good one. Does spirituality help with anxiety?
Liz, do you want to take that first?
Well, I think there's I think that it's a dual sort of response to it. Baha'is believe that you should absolutely consult physicians and talk to them. And if a physician prescribes you medication that can help with that, then you should absolutely take it. It's not a thing of only say the prayers and hope that your anxiety goes away. But do that too. I think that it's a combination thing. And as we know, when you do if you have a panic attack and they say, take deep breaths, count to 5, exhale, count to 5, all that sort of thing. Try to get yourself in a place where you think about something or you have a focus that's essentially meditation, right? So if you're doing that, and then if you're praying to help you to, with the challenges that you're having, I think that's huge. And if a doctor gives you medication, absolutely take it. There's nothing spiritually, in the Baha'i writings that says you should not take, anti-anxiety medications if you need them or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I would say that I agree with everything that Liz said, and exactly right on. And I would say that a great source of anxiety in the contemporary world is people feeling a disconnect, great fear of the future, and a disconnect from their purpose. So spirituality, as this conversation that we had tonight, is uniting us with our souls. It's the thirst for spirituality upon meditating upon the future life that gives us hope for the future. So spirituality is more than tools like prayer and meditation. There are those tools and they're very valuable, but spirituality is reality.
Mhm.
Spirituality is the fact that I'm a soul. I happen to be inhabiting the flesh tuxedo of a ravenously handsome middle-aged white dude from suburban Los Angeles, but that the fact is that we are spiritual beings on a spiritual path, and this can also greatly help with anxiety on a much deeper and more broader level, to feel connected to purpose, united with the love of God, knowing that there is only love and light at the end of this journey.
All right. I think that's a great stopping point. So let's see. Thank you, Rain. And just to say, like, if you have questions that you weren't able to ask in the chat, or maybe you were shy, or maybe there's something that comes up a little bit later, Baha'i Chat does offer a one-on-one virtual guide, a person who can answer questions as you go through your own process of personally investigating the Baha'i faith. You can just email them info@bahai.chat and write guide in the subject line.
April 25th would be our next one of these.
Yes.
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Liz and I will be in discussion on that date.
Yes, yes. And we have to figure out, I mean, I'm really excited to get to talk to you about race unity, because yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I it's something I wake up every, when this thing of bringing yourself to account each day, for Baha'is, we believe that race unity is racism is the most vital and challenging issue facing this country. And so every day when I go to bed, I say my prayers, and I'm, reflecting on the day, and I say, what did I do to try to bring us closer to race unity?
Yeah.
I feel spiritually accountable for that. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. And that puts it in context of race unity being not just like a nice idea, like, oh, can we all kumbaya, hold hands and get along, but like vital and challenging. It's going to be difficult, and it couldn't be more important, and that there is a spiritual path to walk to get there. Not, certainly legislation helps along the way, but it can't just be solved with partisan politics.
absolutely.
Liz, thank you so much. I want to thank Baha'i Chat and Josephina for helping with this, and David Hoffman for putting together this great organization. And thank you to all who attended. It was really lovely to share these quotes with you. I hope you got something out of our discussion. Thanks.